Well, welcome, Rachel and Neo, and welcome to the Recruitment, Marketing and Sales podcast. It is great to have you both.
Hello,
Hello there.
Now, I can do an intro to yourselves because we have known each other for some time, and I'd rather you do that big detailed introduction. But I just want to say to our listeners that I'm really excited about today's conversation because we've got Neo and Rachel, who are a husband and wife team who've been working together in Ice Recruitment for quite some time. And I know there's a big anniversary, so I'm going to let you announce that. But if I could just maybe invite you, Rachel, just share a little bit about ICE, and then we will dive into our conversation today.
thank you very much. Yeah, we are husband and wife team. We started ICE 16 years ago, and it kind of just came about, which we'll get into. But we specialise in the IT channel, and we had a huge focus for many years just on sales. That has expanded quite a bit since, but between both of our backgrounds, that was the logical thing for us to do, as you'll hear, the way that we set up ICE.
Yeah. And so maybe then just kind of expand a little bit then on where did the idea of ICE Recruitment come from? What made you set up the business?
Well, I think for many years we'd both wanted potentially at some point to open our own business. We never quite knew what that was. We didn't know what the timing was. But we both come from families who, both sets of our parents had their own businesses. So I think innately, without even realising, you want to do the same. And that seems quite a logical step at some point. Due to family commitments, I'd left recruitment because I was a recruiter in tech and telecoms and a few other things, but that was my most recent. And I was freelancing whilst our children were younger. And Neo was, working, in the city job. So it looked like, the correct setup. But then 2008 hit. Neo lost his job.
Right.
I was freelancing, and it just seemed like the right time for us to go, well, trying to get another role at Neo's level in 2008 was very, very difficult. So why don't we set something up and see what we can do? And we naturally put together Neo's background of sales and technology with my background of recruitment. And over a coffee in Starbucks, ICE Recruitment was set up pretty much as quickly as that.
We lasted longer than the Starbucks. That's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore. And that's how we came about. That's how it sort of all started.
Interesting. And I didn't know that detail of that part of the story either.
Yeah. Which bit, with Neo or?
Well, no,
2008.
with Neo, 2008, and the Starbucks part of the story. So,
oh yeah,
nice. Always learn something new.
Yeah.
So you've been working together then for 16 years now, because it's like an anniversary right now, isn't it? So maybe let Neo. Maybe if I could start with you, because Rachel, you were working as a recruiter. Neo, you were in corporate in the city, working in telecoms and everything. So you've both come from different, probably sort of cultural backgrounds and everything. So let's just say in the early days, what were some of those early challenges that you've had, working together, coming from different?
There were a few, to be fair. There were a few.
Just a
I
few?
think if you take it, yeah. I mean, look, if you take any group, whether it's 20 or 200 people, you go through a transitional period. I can't remember the exact term for it, but you go through the form, storm, norm, and perform.
Yes.
And clearly, the smaller the number, the quicker you can go through that transition, which was our case. I think culturally, looking back, one of the things that I did, for example, I came from an organization that was $5 billion global company, 75 to 105 people at any one time under the umbrella that I had, to then two of us. I was probably quite naive that I thought I could replicate that culture with two of us.
Right.
Because it worked with 200 of us, why would it not work with two of us? And actually, the processes and the approaches would have been spot on, but the execution, the delivery, the demeanor of a smaller company, but also a husband and wife, it's just never going to work. And so that there was, we formed, there was a reasonable amount of storming where two people have put their stake in the ground and no, I'm a freelancer, you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I'm a sales director, you have to listen to me. And actually no one's budging. So I think that cultural and reasonableness of difference is probably something that I didn't read into very well. And also, by the way, because of 2008 and everything that happened, you're walking into a world where you don't have a lot of time to plan. You need to get up and running because if you can imagine you've got golden handcuffs working at a quite high profile role, from a financial perspective, you have to get onto that treadmill really quickly. So I'm not saying it's a panic situation, but it's an urgency situation for sure.
Yes, the sense of urgency. Yeah. And so how did you both deal with it then? Let's maybe just have your perspective then Rachel, I'm going to come to you and get your experience of it as well. I mean, in that particular scenario in 2008 with that sense of urgency, but that realization quite quickly that this is different. This is not an organization. I don't have all the resources. I don't have an IT department. I don't have a marketing department. I don't have all that back office type support. How did you get to grips with it?
I think there were two things, and none of them are scientific, by the way. So they're open to everyone. One is you just have to work really, really hard. And secondly, like anything in life, once you accept the situation, then you have to find ways around it.
Yeah.
And I think if you get those two going, then you're taking steps forward. What I didn't do very well though was the norming of the cycle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I kept the storming going for a while.
Right.
But once we got through that, it was like that's where the magic started happening.
Yeah. And how about you for you, Rachel?
I think do you mean like the initial starting, the issues the challenges that we were facing? How we overcame them?
Yeah. What were those initial things that come up? Because it's a good point that you mentioned, Neil. You come from corporate, and Rachel, you were kind of like sort of freelancing, and it's like it's very different.
Very different. I mean, I'd worked for a large corporate, a few of them, but I hadn't worked as a corporate recruiter for, I think it was about 18 months to 2 years prior, because our children were young, and especially my son, who wasn't particularly well with his asthma and everything as a child, I needed to be more flexible at the drop of a hat.
Yes.
So I was freelancing, doing a number of things just to keep my hand in. And I was coaching, and I was, working on several different things.
Writing books.
Writing books with I was helping a guy. I'm named in that book, psychology book. I was doing a few things, and then to be thrown back into Neo's version of, there's 110 people in this room with two of us, with 2 chairs and a phone. It wasn't a shock, because I get it, but it did cause conflict. But we managed to get around it, and I think it's because, and I don't know, I don't want to listen to us, but we both are naturally very, very hardworking, and we don't even question it. We just come from backgrounds where you just keep going until you get it. You just, there is no free handouts. If you need something, you get it yourself and you get on with it. And we both come from that background of parents just keeping on going. So I think without even realizing we were doing that, we were just keeping going. Now, if it meant that one was rushing out to the children, the other one's continuing, and then the other one leaves and the other one comes back at 6 o'clock in the evening and carries on, that wasn't a problem. We just kept going. So, and we probably kept going 7 days a week. We just wanted to get it off the ground.
And
I would say also on that, by the way, you asked the question as to how we got over the challenges. I don't think we realized, but deep down, so I guess you call it unconsciously competent. So you knew about it, but you didn't know that you knew about it.
Yeah.
Was that our shared goal was far more important than our individual emotions.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I suppose let's say with that, Neo, because Rachel, you alluded to something about your personal relationship. How did you, I guess, create distinctions and any boundaries actually between work and personal, so that any work disagreements don't end up kind of like messing up a night or messing up a weekend or anything, because it so easily could, and probably often does in some relationships.
Is that for me or for Rach? You go, Rach, actually.
I think there, of course, are those that do go over. And for a long time, it was very difficult to differentiate between the work conflict and then, making dinner. Like that was very difficult. And that was some of the conflict that I think as a partnership, you have to get over if you are husband and wife or partners or whatever. You have to get over that, because I think many people would probably crumble by year 2 and that's still happening. But for us, it was still happening in year 2. And it was getting less and less frequent as the years went on. But it is something you have to work through and figure out. And you sort of have to get to a point where somehow you turn off your laptop and you leave that there. As long as it's not personal, directed at you personally, and it's not personal dig, depending on the language you use, I suppose. If it's just about that needed to be done, we said we would do it and it's not done or it's not completed, then you can close it and go, okay, deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, and I just think you have to keep it business focused. Often, family or friends might say, oh, did you tell Neo about the, going out to that concert? And I'll say, oh, I haven't mentioned it. And they'll be like, you were with him all day. What do you mean you've not mentioned? But when we're at work, we don't really talk about those things.
No.
We have conversations about work as much as we can. And then in the evening, go, oh, so-and-so said, do we want to go to a concert? But it wouldn't be top of my list to call him on Teams and ask him about that.
No. So you you separate out the personal conversations, the social conversations, and then the work conversations in work time. And it's interesting because today we've got you in different locations, and I know that you work in different offices. So has that always been the case, or did that come about through learning?
So I would
Oh
say it
dear.
came about through Rachel decided she couldn't be in the same room as me. And to be honest,
This is
I
true.
can't be in the same room as me. So I can't listen. I'm really intense because I've got this. Listen, there's a lot of people, a lot of us out there who have got drive. All of us
Yeah.
have drive. But I have this obsession of where I want us to get to. It's not just about where I want us to get there, and I want us to get there in the shortest route possible. And
Mm.
so, I would say that a lot of the parameters and a lot of the smoothness that we work with now, which we do, by the way,
Mm.
I think the first 2 years were of that ilk. And also, don't forget, we're in the middle of a recession. We had small kids, so
Yeah.
it's not
It's not doable.
normal. Yeah, look, we did it the other way around. Most people start a business here and then have family. We had a family
Yeah.
and started a business here. Um, and so I would say that, and it works really, really well now, by the way,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
well. But we're in different locations because it works very well for us.
Hmm.
Actually, it's quite noisy with two of us in the same room anyway.
I can
Um,
relate
Yeah.
to that.
You're on the phone a lot as a recruiter. We're just on the phone talking.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it really works well in that respect.
Hmm.
You find that you've defined your own environment, which my environment's different from yours, is different from Rachel's,
Mm.
and so on. But going back to the question that you talked about earlier of how do you work it out to make it work?
Mm.
Unfortunately, it's not something you're able to get from a book. You can have all the rules that you set up before you go in and say,
Mm.
right, during this time, we're only going to talk about work, and during this time, we're not going to talk about work. But actually, it just doesn't work like that.
Mhm.
And the only way is that you have to grow as people. And the
Mm.
only way you grow as people is through years, through time, through experience, and unfortunately, through pain and failure. It's
So
the
true.
only way you can learn.
Mm.
And if you're strong enough, and I think Rachel alluded to it earlier, in the first 2 years, or however long it takes to get to that place where it's going
Mm.
well. And by the way, some people hit it off really well at the beginning because it starts well. But
Mm.
believe me, at some point in the journey, if you take a 15-year period, there will be dark periods where you will want to have fights, not literally,
Mm.
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
If you're two friends, two couples, whoever you are.
Mm.
But the only way through it is that you have to cut off and send the ships away. You have no plan B.
Mm.
So either we work through this, or we dismantle the business and we go and do something else. And that was never, and will never be an option ever.
No. And I think, from let's say from my own experience, sometimes as uncomfortable as it is, it's being honest with yourself, isn't it? About, look, I know what I'm really good at, and this is not something that floats my boat or I'm particularly strong at, and to just be honest and admit it and say, well, look, then let somebody else do that, whether that is the other person or whether that is somebody that you have as like an outsourced person in the team, is to actually play to your strengths and not think that you have to do or you both have to do everything, because even if you kind of like you bring all those strengths together, somewhere there's going to be some gaps, aren't there? And that
Yeah,
you don't automatically as a couple have to fill each other's gaps. It's like maybe we need a third or a fourth person because that's their specialism, and so we'll do that. And I think it's getting, I don't know, just getting beyond that ego of you're not perfect. You can't bring everything to that business that you might want to. Does that make
yeah. It's
sense?
very, very
Yeah.
true. Yeah, 100%. In the early days when, during 2008 and finances were tight, you couldn't bring in a third person. if I may, Rach, I think one of the things that I go back to that I didn't do very well was because we talked about this, and I didn't I didn't dissect our strengths, and I just expected us both to do everything. And
Mm.
if we couldn't do everything, we should go out and learn how to do everything
Yeah.
because we are in this position. And actually, if I had that time again, I'd say, right, look, I'll go and do this, and you go and do this, and let's come back and meet. One thing I became brilliant at, though, an Olympian, actually, I became an Olympian at was apologizing,
Is
which I
that true,
needed to do
Rachel?
quite
Is that
regularly.
true? Can we
Wow.
validate that, Rachel?
I'm not sure we're on the same side here. No. Okay. Right. We'll say yes.
Okay.
I had to apologize a lot when I look back at how I was approaching stuff,
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean,
But
just I suppose thinking about, excuse me, how you're approaching things. Obviously, in businesses, there are often a lot of decisions that need making. So I guess I'm curious, how did you guys approach? Maybe, Rachel, we invite you in here. How did you guys
mm,
approach that process of making important decisions?
I think it's developed over the years, but in more recent years, it's a bit more structured. Will that thing save us time? Will that thing save us money? Will that thing make us money?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not agreed between the two of us that yes or no on all of them, then we have to have further discussion to come to a decision on whether we go for something or don't go for something.
Yeah.
There have been occasions where one's been more pro something than another, and it's always figured out in the end. But, you have to have a system of, this sounds great, but do we need it right now? This sounds
Yeah.
brilliant, but we're two people, and that particular tool is really going to help 50 plus. So,
Yeah.
There's certain things that sound great, but in reality, do you want to spend that output? Do you want to do a 3-year deal on something? And you have to look at all the parameters around it. So I think that's how we have approached decisions.
So it's almost like, it sounds then like that you've over time developed criteria that you would run your decision making through, and where there's differences in answers to that criteria, then there's a deeper conversation about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a no-brainer, we both go yes, no, brilliant, that's great, then that's fine. But there's lots of things where one sees it from maybe the angle of the sort of roles and clients they're dealing with versus the other person. So you've got to come to, because we do, we're the same business, but obviously we sort of head up slightly different divisions each. They merge very often, but we've got people that come to me or come to Neo, so you sort of base it on those people and business decisions. So that's the way we do it.
And I suppose just kind of like building on that then. So you've both got, I know, sort of like responsibility for sort of slightly different client bases and divisions, as you say, but maybe if you could just sort of share a little bit about how you've divided up your roles as well, because I know that you do have some different roles in the business as well, don't you?
Shall I answer that, Mia? Yeah, I'll start. I think we looked at some point, I don't know when this occurred, but Neo's very commercial. That's his strength without a doubt. I was a recruiter and there was hundreds of jobs back in the 90s, and so you would have a book full of jobs and you would be sourcing and interviewing and placing candidates, the simple basic system. So I see myself as more of a delivery person, and Neo has sort of the big picture, his commercial background. along with my sort of more creative side, so I'm very hot on detail. I'm very hot on layout. This is how I like it to be presented. Alongside doing those roles, we've somehow merged that into two sides of the business. So obviously Neo, again, very senior role he came from. A lot of the roles he places are extremely senior, board level, senior salespeople. So his knowledge naturally would match those roles.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? He's got an exclusive perspective of having been in a business doing that, where I've only recruited for a business doing that. So of course he heads those up. And then there's roles which, and not to use the word junior or anything, but anything, sales roles, ops, when we've got technical roles, I love getting into the detail of all that. So they suit my brain. And why wouldn't you do what matches what you can do? And like Neo said earlier, we've learned what our strengths are. And I sort of get quite obsessed on a detail where, Neo naturally knows the senior end of the market within the tech industry. So we've just kind of naturally, but now very clearly, got two sides to the business. And if I see something, I'll go, you're great, but I'm going to get Neo to talk to you, because he will question them in a much better way than I would, and vice versa. So candidates and clients are put in front of the right account director, or whatever you want to call us with.
Neo, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that was really, really well put. I think the only thing is that, the other thing that works really well for us is that within organizations, so we might share clients that have different contacts within those clients. In terms of who gets on better with who can help better with who, what roles are more suited to that person, or even times where we have the same contacts for different roles at different times of the year. So it's quite fluid. And I think, going back to the husband-wife thing, because of that shared value and that shared goal, if you've worked I did 6 months in a recruitment organization in the city. It was the worst experience of my life by a stretch. It was like Boiler Room meets Wolf of Wall Street meets Mike Tyson. I mean, it was just horrendous. The only upside was it was better than selling kebabs. That was the only upside I could find in it, right? But in that period, and I'll never forget the story. I had a candidate that I found. When you first start and you get quite lucky because you don't know what's right and what's wrong. And I found this unbelievable candidate. And we worked on different floors in Old Street. And a lad came down from the second floor to the third floor, steaming in, and I'm like, this guy looks like he's really upset about something. I wonder who's upset him. And he's heading towards me because I found this candidate, and it was candidate driven, right?
Right.
And the candidate was registered. It wasn't actually registered to him anyway. And without going into detail, it just wasn't nice. And so with us, because husband and wife, and we've got the same goal and the same shared outcome, if we both speak to the same person, the same cat, it doesn't make a difference. So we've alleviated and eliminated a lot of those potential conflicts.
No, I think and also, while you haven't said it, I know that, from knowing you guys for so long, that that the importance of those shared values. You've got that shared goal, but it's the values that underpin what you do, how you both work, the philosophy that you have with clients, the quality of the service that means that you bring. I think that also is a huge part of the glue that holds things together in any business. But when you're working so closely and there's a personal relationship as well, I don't know, I think it's probably just a bit more intense, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I call it HIT, okay, and it's honesty, integrity, and trust. And I believe that life is not a light switch. You can't have the light switched on at work and switched off in your personal life, or vice versa. How you do one thing, you have to do the other. Absolutely. You can't have a marriage where you're honest, have integrity and trust, and then try and fleece a client, because it just doesn't work.
No, no.
You have to live everything in the same way,
Yeah.
and I think that stands us in unbelievable stead for the business and unbelievable stead for a relationship, both business and personal,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And so you're just thinking about your relationship. I mean, if there are other people listening to this and they're thinking of bringing their partner into the business, I mean, what advice might you give to other couples who perhaps are considering working with their other half?
Over to you, Rach. I think you should start.
I mean, everybody's relationship is different. I guess you have to be, first of all, you have to definitely be sure that you're going to be prepared for challenges, because there are going to be some, there's challenges in everything, but this challenges you from both angles. Bringing in a wage and staying together. So it affects everything. So you have to be really clear on your intentions. It is give and take. Some things you're not going to win if you see it as a win-loss thing. You're not going to win everything. You're not going to get everything. It's not going to go at the speed you want. There are going to be hurdles. You might set off, as Neo said, you might go really well at the beginning and then you hit a bump. It might be a slow burn and then you finally get there. But there are challenges, and you have to give yourself mini goals, I would say, to hit and say, I feel like even though that didn't happen, we've managed this, we've achieved this.
Yeah.
And you have to holistically look at your life. I would say holistically, as a couple who've had children, busy lives, sports, a business, family. Look at all the sections. Know that some of them are going to be, you're not going to attend every family event because you're working. You're not going to be, like before, if you were in a commercial role, getting a new car every 2 years or whatever the thing is. You can't guarantee anything of that. You may get it. I'm not saying you won't, of course. I'm just saying you have to be prepared for a few hardships as well as really enjoying those wins.
Yeah.
Because, I certainly remember our first placement, and, it was so exciting.
We're in Bulgaria.
We were on holiday in Bulgaria because we previously booked this holiday when Neo was still working. We were like, well, we might as well go. And by this point, we'd been recruiting for about, we'd set up about 2 to 3 months before. And we closed the deal around the pool with the kids. And
Fantastic.
because Bulgaria back then was so cheap, we paid for that holiday twice over with that one deal. We were like, whoa, it was so exciting. So, I mean, but then reality hits. But, so these are the things. I think my advice is stick with it. Have a few parameters that you can waver on. Like, you'll think it's going to go like this, but it's going to go like that. And just keep reminding yourself of your shared goal. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. And Neo, what can you add?
So the question is, what advice would we give to people if they were a couple going into this?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, as a summary, a high level summary, and then I'll go into a little bit of detail. The benefits far outweigh, by a stretch, the downsides.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
True.
But to get 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 50, whatever it is, because some people want to exit, some people, we don't want to exit. We have a different plan. Be prepared for conflict. Be prepared for very dark periods, but you're going to get those if you work for someone else anyway.
Yeah. Life's 50-50.
And I would say, yeah, absolutely. And I would say, if you feel that you have the right business and that you're able to at least start with parameters of what you're going to do together. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And like Rach said, stick to it, because if I take a snapshot, I'm a father who's never missed a sports day, never missed a parents' evening. Christos wanted, my son wanted, he got a 6-week trial down at Watford, and I went to all 6 weeks trials and took him down there, and never missed a game. Always went to the swimming tournament. We've never missed anything.
No.
Ever. So you tell me, for me, that alone is absolutely enormous.
It's huge. It's huge because
huge.
So many parents don't necessarily manage to do all that for whatever reason.
Well, that was me. Before that was me, because I had to physically be somewhere, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is a massive upside, and it's rarely talked about, but let's bring it out into the open. So you see a couple who at the start of their relationship, and then let's fast forward 30 years, and one's been working over here doing this, and one's been working over here doing that. And then everyone flees the nest, and then it's the two of them. And they realize they have to talk to each other. And actually, they've grown so far apart and there's nothing in common anymore. Now, this isn't why we did the business, but by default, what I think we found is that we're actually closer now than we were 15, 18 years ago, because we're both having to grow as people. You'll know this from your business, Sharon. The people that are most successful in relationships and the people that are most successful in business, and whether it's parenting, friendships, or whatever, are the people who have the best coping mechanisms. And the best coping mechanisms comes through the more pain you go through, and then devise coping mechanisms to deal with those pains next time they come. Outside of health, I'm not talking about that stuff over there. Then you grow together. Whereas if one person grows and the other one doesn't, and 25, 30 years later, you say,
that gap's
who are you?
wide, isn't it? Yeah.
It's massive, and it's something that people don't. We just thought, in talking about it when we go out. So when we go out for dinner, if we don't talk about work or the kids, there's very little to talk about, to be honest. But we talk about the effects of who we are about work. So it's a bit less about work and more about. And the other thing I would recommend to people is, for example, Rachel comes to your meetings and has a tribe.
Yeah.
I have a tribe elsewhere. I don't want it to be the same tribe, because you also have to have your own time and space away from each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So lots in there in no particular order, but somehow they make a song.
Yeah. And I think it's great, actually, because the other question I was thinking of was, over the time that you've been a couple and you have worked together, is how has your relationship evolved, which, is what you've really kind of like been talking about there, because, I agree in terms of, when you are working together and living together and everything else, at some point, we're individuals as well, aren't we? We need our own space. You need to flourish and grow as individuals as well as a couple. So I think that's a really great point that you pull out, though, Neo, about, and a lovely way of describing it, really. Rach, you've got your tribe, Neo. The other thing, though, that I suppose just want to maybe just touch on a little bit is that I know from knowing you guys for so long that you have a full-on life. I mean, your kids are young adults out in the world making their own way now, and yet, Rachel, you've almost got a second business. Neo, you're being so involved in football. How have you made all that work? Because you guys, you are on it for probably, I don't know, almost 19 hours a day. You guys do not have lots of sleep from our conversations. How have you made it all work and have a really strong relationship?
Well, I think somehow as it's developed over the years, in simple terms, we had the business in the daytime, but my daughter was a swimmer. Sorry, our daughter was a swimmer. So I was up at 4:30 a.m. doing early morning swims.
Yeah.
And then our son is a footballer and Neo was the coach. So off they would go from 6 o'clock a couple of times a week, or definitely on a weekend. They'd be playing games. And we would be round a pool all weekend because there was all these meets that we would have to go to. And because of that, we didn't want to, that was priority, that they got that time from us and they could develop their sports as they wanted to. They led it. If they wanted to stop, we'd have stopped, but they wanted to keep going. And because of that, we had to fit the business around it. And the business was priority. So then maybe at the weekend we would end up, or maybe in the evenings when I was doing school run all those years, I would, really, I was working the middle hours, doing the evening bit, and then working an hour to 2 hours later on in the evening. And that's how I managed it. But that was the payoff of this great life of being able to be there 110% for our kids. They were what we wanted. We wanted to have that balance of kids and business, and that's because we decided that wasn't even a question. And very rarely were we so tired that it was just like, I've just got to switch off. You just kind of kept going. It just kept going, and that, I truly think we just had this drive to be. I remember very early in my career being told, you can only do so much, and I remember thinking, no, there's nothing that I can't do that I don't want to do. And I seem to have just, I don't know what made me hang on to this thought, but I was like, no one's telling me what I can't do, so I'll do all of it. I'm going to do all of it.
And it's interesting because I think it reminds me, we have a lot of conversations these days, particularly in our recruitment world, of the whole work-life balance thing. And it reminds me of sitting in the audience as a sales manager myself many years ago at Pfizer, and the national sales manager talking about there'd been an employee survey of the management team, and there was a lot of feedback about lack of work-life balance. And I always remember, so he stuck with me what he said at the time, and he said, look, nobody's making you open your laptop at 9 o'clock at night. We all have a choice about the hours that we put in. He said, as long as you are, meeting your objectives, let's say, then, some people can meet those objectives in X hours, and somebody else might decide they want to put more effort in. And that might mean that they get an exceeding on their performance review rather than a good. He said, and that's your choice. And that stuck with me because, there's always this thing as well that for me, I don't have this compartmentalization of work and home. It's like, this is what I do. It's who I am. I love what I do. And if that means that we want to go out and have dinner, and actually that conversation that we have is a couple of free hours away from home, away from the office, where we can chat about ideas and work and what we're going to do and new things that we want. And it's actually easier and a nice environment to do it in, because we're not at risk of running back to a PC or anything like that. That's our choice if we want to do that, and we love what we do, so why would we not do that? But it's not about judging other people because they want to have separation and compartmentalization. That's fine, but I think it's we should be allowed to be who we are. And if we want to do our businesses how you guys have been describing and know how we do, then that's fine, isn't it? You know, it's kind of like it's our business and it's
Absolutely.
our life really.
Yeah.
So let's kind of like say then, just to sort of summarize, for you, I think, Neo, you've described, I guess, your experience of this as well. But, you know, for you, what have been the absolute highlights of the last 16 years of working together in ICE? And I'm going to start with Rachel first, and then we'll come to you, Neo. Just a couple of things, your key
Okay.
highlights.
I think my key highlights have been having a business we love and absolutely knowing we are so fortunate, happy. We love what we do. We genuinely do. You can't do it for this long if you don't.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's so rewarding when you help someone. There's something so rewarding about that, and that's actually the essence of what we do.
Yeah.
We try to unburden our clients with recruitment because that is not their job. Their job is doing whatever their job is, and our candidates mean also so much because we want to get them the best opportunity that is absolutely right for them, and something so rewarding about that. And I think just knowing someday you've made someone's day by saying, I've got you an offer, I've got you an interview sometimes. It's so rewarding. So from that angle, that's one of the great things about this business. But personally, as a business owner, as a husband-wife team, as a family, it's just been, we've been able to create a life that we've sustained on our terms. And we've managed it. We sort of look back now and go, wow, we seem to have done that bit. Let's keep it going. And we've got so many goals we want to hit still. We're nowhere near, you know, this is just entering a new era, and we're excited about the new era. So that's some of the highlights for me.
Brilliant.
And Neo, how about yourself?
Do you know, that's such a good question. I don't even know how to answer it, to be honest with you. If I could take it from a 60,000-foot view rather than moments, let's take one from a selfish perspective and one from a non-selfish. So from the non-selfish perspective, I really love being able to do stuff that other people can't do. So when a client doesn't believe me, because let's just take a step back. Recruitment has a really, really bad rep. So our first hurdle is always as recruiters, because no one knows us. People know us, but the people that don't know us don't know us. And I can sit here and say, honesty, integrity, trust. But so can he, she, they, and them, because they just want to get through the door. I don't know how to tell you how much I believe in what I'm doing. And actually, if you don't have those values, by the way, I'm not working with you. Just so you know, because I have a responsibility to my candidate. In the same way that if my candidate isn't the right person, I've got a responsibility to my client, because if I get it wrong for the candidate, I've been that person, head in hands, family behind you crying. If I get it wrong for the client, it's a problem for them as well, because they have to then go upline and explain why. So never knowingly been falsified in any way whatsoever. It's not right, it's not right. So I really love having that control rather than being told you have to sell that because there's more GP on it.
Yes.
So that bit there.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
The bit over here that I really love, the highlight, I think the highlight is what's coming, because if I was to analyze, we've done it the other way around, where we fitted the business around our family. But now, so to give people who don't know us a perspective, my daughter's 23 and working in the corporate world. She's actually gone into selling a SaaS product, etc. So, and she's loving it. Our youngest has just finished university, so we're back in May, I think it was, all come through, and he's just set up a business. In fact, his desk is just over here. So I thought I was on my own, but his desk is over there. So we spent all our time fitting our business around the family, but now we are going to do in the next 10 years what most people do in 30, because that's really, really exciting. The highlight for me is now knowing what we want to do. I'm
Yeah.
really proud of our standards of work, our standards of energy, our standards that what you alluded to earlier. You're doing 18, 19 hours a day. Is that sustainable? Well, for most people, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm different. I don't really listen to the noise out there. I don't watch the news. Rachel, if you put me on a 50-50 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for the mill, I'm probably losing it. I've no idea what's going on in the world because my focus and my noise is here. So I think my highlight has been, I think the highlight has been how much we've developed as individuals. I think that will be it. If you said to me,
that's a good one. Yeah.
There was an incident, without going into detail, a fortnight ago, that had that same incident happened 15 years ago, I'd have had a meltdown.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by personal growth.
Yeah.
The ability to cope with something that you couldn't cope with before. Genuinely doesn't mean you're going to get out of it, because sometimes circumstances don't do it. But I'm actually going to be calm about this. I'm going to have a 10-minute meltdown, not a 10-day meltdown. And we're going to put something together that we think is going to fix this. The ability to stay calm and try, with the experience that you have, to deal with the situation outside of health is what I think is my biggest highlight of how we've grown. And other people who have their own businesses. I'm not talking about we're special. I'm talking about
no.
that ability.
Yeah. And
that's what I would say my highlight is.
And I think it's a great highlight, because I think I remember many years ago listening to a personal development guy. I think he was an American, and he was saying, if you want to experience growth, have a relationship. And I kind of think, I've always thought about that. And I think, if you want to experience accelerator growth, have a relationship and be in a business with that same person. And you are, if it's going to
and you've done it.
You are on like a fast track growth curve, haven't you? So listen, it's been fabulous listening to you both. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your thoughts. And I know that you are at a new stage in your life and your business, with what's happened with with the kids venturing out into the world and their life. So lots of luck for that next 10 years, and I'm excited to see what is possible. So and hopefully we'll get to.
And I will finish on the note that if it wasn't for tribes and groups like yours, we would be on a slower accelerator, because I'm not involved a lot on that side, and sometimes it seems as though I'm not engaged. Actually, I'm very engaged, because I see what's happening over here, and it's a deliberate strategy of ours to have it that way, because we have to, in order to be able to grow that way. But the tribe, so I can only talk from watching Rach in that tribe and the excitement that she talks about. So I mean, and this isn't a plug, but if anyone's thinking about it, it's a no-brainer. Honestly, it's the upside is it's the soft side that's a little bit immeasurable, that actually helps you develop and get that. So yeah, really good. And seeing you guys grow and develop as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, listen, thanks for your time, guys, and we look forward to seeing you soon, Rachel, as well. Take care.
Yes, see you soon. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Let's just go down.
I'm at 99.
Stop.
There we go.